Hey, Good News family. This is Tana Heineman, the host of our Now What podcast. Our desire is to walk alongside you as we grow together in our understanding of God and His Word. Each week, we get to unpack the message with our pastors as well as everyday people in our church family and help answer the question, now what do I do with what I just heard? We love that you're here with us, and we hope you're challenged and encouraged as together we unpack Sunday's message. Hey, Good News family. Hey, Pastor Greg. Oh, I said hi to you right off the bat. You weren't ready for me. Caught you taking a drink.
It's all right.
Thank you guys all for joining us this week. I didn't really have any great thoughts. Well, we might say I never do, but thank you. That makes it easier for me. I know. You guys look. We're actually going to try to get some Now What cups because these ones are dying.
Now What Worship Podcast.
Okay, you guys, literally, we got to get into it. I'm going to test your knowledge here. Because I loved your title of your message was so good, and you said that you wanted, it was good clickbait. And so I wanted to ask you what clickbait is.
Anything that is sort of provocative that would cause you to suddenly click on it or lean toward it or decide you're going to read it. And clickbait could be so many different things.
So good. Yeah. That was our word lesson, our urban, no, not urban dictionary, just our, maybe.
Yeah.
Definition. But anyways, okay.
So we're done?
That's it. We're done.
Nice.
We're going home.
This was a good episode.
This is great.
I liked it.
No, we haven't even got there yet because the title was I identify as, and we could say this the whole thing all together. I identify as he, him.
Yeah.
And I wondered how it went. Did it go over well in the second service? I didn't hear it. Did you get any laughs or response or anything, or were they just
I honestly wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
The way I do it, I don't really.
So many of us had a lot of fun knowing you were going to do it, and I just loved the title, and I love really that the verses that you had at first glance, to be really honest, I wouldn't have grabbed identity out of there. And so that's why I really loved that you did that. Again, beating a dead horse is we tend to get in the habit of reading and not absorbing and slow down and think about what you're reading. And of course there's identity in those passages, but
it's actually among the benefits of going this slow, but specifically in sermons, is that so I could just read that verse and then explain the verse, and okay, we've done a lesson, which is fine. For me, as a presenter or speaker, communicator, however you want to say it, I want something that I feel like someone's sitting that they don't have to care. Yep. They showed up at church, and this could be boring or it could be something. I want to be interesting.
Yeah.
But I also primarily want to be faithful to the text. And so I don't want to rip something, but I think it just struck me early on and kind of looking at it that, one, I think this is what James is doing through this section. And two, the answer to the problem he's presenting is God and that faithfulness. And I think that is an identity thing, that's something to who are we kind of stuff. And you had asked earlier, and I'm just realizing this now, you'd asked me earlier, is there anything that I have? And I actually do at this moment. So I'm going to say it, and then maybe we can come back to it. But
my question was, is there anything that maybe stuck out that you didn't get to say in the sermon or that you wanted to hit on more and that you'd like to talk about on the podcast?
Yeah, and so the identity idea came from these ideas that were too much to try and explain in that particular time frame. And so it involves family name. So it's a few different things all coming together. But family name, how do I identify who am I connected to? Where do I fit, and all these different ideas. But specifically for me, it was family name and then what that means for so many people, and whether you have that or not, whether it means anything in our society now, but it definitely used to, and things like that. So
that's so good.
Anyway,
I teach my oldest is a girl, so I knew, eventually she's going to grow up and her name is going to change. But even there is a little bit because my husband actually adopted her and gave her his name.
Yeah.
And so for me, there's a really deep spiritual connection to that reality. Yet then I tell our boys, It's always a very big deal. If you're an athlete, your name is on the back of your jersey.
Yeah.
And then on the front of your jersey is the school you're playing for.
Yep.
And who you're going to be, who you're representing. And so for us, it would be you're representing Heinemann and you're also representing Christ because our household is submitted to God.
Yeah.
And how is that going to look? And even just being able to talk to the younger siblings who are going up, and now my third son is a freshman in high school, and he literally just said it the other day, talking about, man, I'm really glad that his two older brothers had a good reputation with the teachers and all of that. I'm like, it pays off, doesn't it?
Yep.
Or if people hear, oh, Wallace, oh man, we've got a history with him, or whatever. It's like you don't ever want anybody to respond to your name with a certain identity that you don't want associated with.
Yeah, I agree. And my natural, maybe not natural, by my inclination is, I'll call it proactive, but I get I don't want other people to have negative thoughts. But I also, I do want them to have positive thoughts, but the way I'm wired, I may not care either way, because I don't know that I trust anyone's, and it doesn't mean I don't trust anyone's. It just, if it's just whoever has a thought, who are you? Why should I care about your thoughts about me? And there's balance here. I'm talking about overeat. So I'm a parent and someone decides, well, you should raise your kids this way. I'm like, you don't know me. You don't know my kids. This is my defensive, and I kind of hold to that. I still. That said, if you care about me and my family, and you come in the right way, let's grow together. Help me grow. I want to be open and humble to that. Yeah. But you're just randoms. It doesn't matter what you think. And so, and some of that comes out of pastoring. As young people, I used to be more harsh.
You used to be?
Yes.
Wow. Actually, I say that about myself too.
I once. I don't remember context, but First Church youth pastor, I said something to the degree of, some of you may look at my kids and think we should be doing this or whatever, and I go, I really don't care what you think. My standards are actually higher than yours about how I raise my kids. So unless you're in it with me, I really couldn't care less. And I'm sure it had some point, but I probably took it too far. But I kind of hold to that. Anyway, my point for this conversation, get lost in a story, is I think, or I want to, I'm going to call it proactive, but I'm saying I think Scripture is defining what it looks like to be either family or people of faith, people who follow Jesus. And while if you're in it with me, I care, but if all you're trying to do is tear down, or you are wrapped up in shame yourself, and so you can't see that the things you're doing are just adding to other people's potential for non-useful shame, then I don't need that. What I'm trying to say is, this is a better way to go at it because I'm not being as clear. Coming from even though I was raised by the Korshes, great family, my name is still Wallace. If I trace that back, I'm the son of an adopted kid whose dad wasn't around, and their last name was Ewers. So for me, I have no last name, even though I do. But the reason I say I don't have one is that it doesn't have any value. So early on, Angie and I both decided, we're going to start a new family, a brand new thing. And for some reason had this sense of, that means something to me. And I don't think it means everything that it did in ancient times or previous times, but I wanted it to mean something. And that's how we raised our kids. To the degree we would have something that we called Wallace business, because we're pastors' kids. They know everybody's talking to them, and you become less careful maybe with information when you're like, oh, this. And I was also didn't want to communicate, be afraid. Take your information and hold it back. We should be afraid of the people in a congregation or how people are going to perceive us and stuff like that, because I push hard against that.
Yep.
So what's the balance is, we're going to set a standard. We're going to call it, this is who we are. This is we, and you see it in my boys now. I also, side note, because I'm not side note enough already, I think as you raise your kids, you can, if you'll pay attention, you'll actually find what you actually believe. So you get, I believe in church. You go to church, whether at a core level you believe in church, you'll kind of see that in how your kids then respond. What they value is probably more of what I'm saying. And church might not be a great example, but our church attendance or things like that. All my kids believe in God. They believe in Jesus, but have varying levels of the importance of direct community because of their different experiences with church communities. But if you put them in a situation where there's a vulnerability and someone needs taken care of in a moment, all my boys step in between the danger and the vulnerable. And we discover by looking at them and humbly, because I'm surprised, I'm positively surprised. I go, but we've always, this is what it means to be Wallace. We have Wallace business. So your brother had an embarrassing incident. Boys, this is Wallace business. Understand that. We're not going to, this is what happens in our house. And so it was just a way to communicate a general idea, but it involved protecting from mindlessness, self-awareness, protecting are the people who need protected in a moment. And this is how we move forward. And I'm humbled again to say that I see that in my boys. It pushes against some people's point of view on what certain thing, the right way to do certain things, but I'm incredibly proud because there's people they'll stand we call it stand in the gap, but I mean literally stand in the gap for, and they would rather take the hit themselves than allow someone else to take it. So I'm proud of that.
That's so good. Now I'm thinking about the several rabbit trails we just went down, and I'm like, how in the world, where were we going? And where do we go next? For me, those are the formational ideas, the core ideas for me, that while I'm thinking about preaching, I'm like, I can get some of that across to a group, and I can get those what I think of as the surface stuff, but I value it too much to use it as just a off illustration. And so, but it was the core. It was some of the core where the rest of the clarity that's able to be preached and stuff within 35, 40 minutes or whatever, but while doing justice to the text that we were on. So, and I'm being technical here, but I kind of enjoy it, and I don't know. So getting there, so I have this core idea of family, and I'm thinking about so you'll see in Scripture maybe suddenly Bartholomew is... That's not a normal name we bring up,
son of something, or Ben would be another one, Ben something. So Benjamin, son of Hamin, it's kind of how this kind of idea. Anyway, so son of was before they had last names. You'd be the son of this or daughter of and things. But previous culture, the son idea, who carries on the family name. For ones of a high integrity, honor, you might have seen family crests. And those could either be decoration, and eventually over years when it's not passed on, it becomes decoration. But I idealized that at some point, if you had honor, truth, and whatever on your family crest, at some point someone took that really, really seriously.
Yeah.
And those ideas were meant to be the core aspects of who the family was and what it meant to be them. I think of the United States. We can get very worked up about freedom, but I think the original freedom idea had some depth to it that we've turned into maybe a little less than my idealized version. I'm a very idealistic person thought-wise, but what if freedom meant the lack of constraints, and because I have become potentially strong, I now have the ability to use my strength. How am I going to use it? So during COVID, for example, there was a lot of, this is what it means to be free, and I'm pushing back going, no, freedom, Bible-wise, means we're free to choose to protect. We're free to choose to care. And in so many cases, that's kind of a negative example, and I mean it more of a reminder that I don't want it to be a criticism, although I did, if I'm being honest, I think I misused it as a criticism, but I want it to be an awareness that one of the things that, and I think if you ask my boys, it would come this way. I'm bragging about my family. I don't mean it that way. Is a question. We are strong. We are smart. Why? And teaching them, it's not for you. We are in a situation which, for some reason, we're really safe, and we have the strength to navigate our lives and make decisions. It doesn't mean we can control everything. Some things go sideways. That happens for everybody. But insofar as it depends on us, we have enough sense, enough resource availability for whatever reason to make decisions that impact the future of our lives. What are we going to do with that? And rather than pursue only selfish things, we're all selfish to some degree, maybe the main degree, I don't know. The teaching I wanted to get across was we were made strong because some aren't. And we have the ability to choose to use our strength, our intelligence, whatever you want, in there to help others who in those cases don't. It doesn't mean we're coming into the savior syndrome or anything else. It simply means that the meaning behind having blessing is so that we can be blessed, certainly, recognize God, absolutely, but now we have a mission to care about those who may or may not be in the same situation. So,
yeah, I can picture your notes from Sunday, and I can remember you actually went that direction somewhere. I don't think I have it here, but just even that we're God's prized possession, but it's not just for my sake of being His prized possession. No. If anything, that's icing on the cake, but it's really the purpose that He has by making us. And in the end of that portion of Scripture, which that will tie me back, because I was even thinking, when at first I was reading the 3 verses, 16, 17, 18, the 3 verses that you were covering, I wanted, and you gave us a recap, but I wanted to go back and actually read, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, we were just talking about don't be, God is not the one who tempts us, right? It's by our own evil desires, which then lead to sin, and sin to death. And then the very next thing starts with, so don't be misled. And again, Bible knowledge is we're the ones, I don't even know what era, we, humanity, added the chapters, number, the verses, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know when that happened. Kind of in the process.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
But we added those notations, so this is just one long thing happening here. So,
and they're not very real quick. Those notations that they were added later doesn't mean they're wrong. they're just addresses to help us find
Help us
things.
find it.
That's all they are. So
Yep.
they're not that whatever you might make up, they're just simply addresses. But they can also mess up your ability to read it because you think they were,
Yep.
maybe assigned intentionally, which maybe they were, but doesn't mean they were always right.
Right. So he says, so don't be misled, my dear brothers and sisters. And so right there, you're like, so don't be misled. It's like kind of that therefore thing. When you have so, it's referring back to the verses before. So God does not tempt. It's our own evil desires that tempt us and that lead to sin, which leads to death. But so don't be misled by thinking that that's God. And then you kind of actually gave your own version. Don't get twisted, fam, which I loved. And but when you get through there, then it says God only brings what is good and perfect, including the lights that he chose. And then he chose to give birth or give life to the lights, but also through the truth of his word, he gave us life, right? And then he makes us his prized possession over everything else he created. And there's a lot of things that can make me go, holy cow, that is amazing. And yet we're the prized possession over the thing that wows and shocks and even, just it's amazing.
With a mission to care for everything. He's basically go and be me.
So if he's saying go and be a mini version of me, then why would he bring temptation leading to sin and death? He wouldn't. So don't be misled. Remember who you are, and you are who you are because of who he said you are. Therefore, he's not going to do anything to lead you to sin and death and separation from him.
Absolutely.
Right?
And the assumption that you're actually made strong makes not being strong confusing. You're not being who. So we need to get you back to your core, who you're made. You're worried about sometimes. We are and continue to be what I'll call micro sin obsessed. And I'm going to push against someone's theology here.
Good.
But from my perspective, we are. Sex is an easy one. Trying to think of this one will be a little easier. Sort of cussing.
Okay.
Let's call it that. And one that even needs broken down for my type of personality.
I was going to say, that's,
Oh, it does. And I think we've talked about
I've
this
had
before.
Some of these conversations with you,
Cursing, cussing, swearing, I think are fun to break down and without the desire to justify whatever. But we can see that, that means they're sinning or something like, I don't know. And I'm being little, the word that's in my head is trite, just for simplicity. That we pay attention to those things so much that we're not actively being strong. It would, football family, it would be you're so caught up in the fact that you missed a block that now you're messing up your next play. Not recognizing that you are, I don't know, your boys tight ends, I'm guessing?
Defensive ends.
Defensive ends, okay, which I don't know a ton of football, but if they miss, they aren't paying attention. They don't have their head on a swivel, so they get blocked, I'm guessing, and now they can't make a play that if they had been paying attention, they could have. And now they're stuck with going, oh, man, I'm dumb, and I did this. And basically, this is often a sin conversation where you're stuck in the minutia, and so you can't just do what you do. One of the reasons I'm not great at sports, apart from not being body frame for it, is I'm too in my head while I'm playing, but the best ones are able to have processed in their head and now are just able to play naturally. They're able to just be strong. I feel more comfortable in different venues. But if I get in my head, let's say while I'm preaching, I get to, oh man, I mispronounced that word, or the last time my voice cracked, and I just went, puberty. If I get stuck on that, now because of that, and I go, that it'll mess up the rest of this.
Yeah.
I stop acting in my strength and the thing I'm actually decent at and I have confidence in, but I'm stuck in this past thing.
Sure.
So I'm paying attention to this micro sin. And now I'm being taught by everybody else also to pay attention to those micro sins. Those are separating you from God. Look, I get it. If all you do is screw up, yes. But the way to move past is to do what you really know you're good at. And do you pay attention? Yeah, but you're going to have to look back and learn. Well, why did what was I doing, to go back to the football one? We're doing hyper podcast here. But I go back to the football one and I think, okay, well, why did I miss that tackle? Well, because I was blocked. Why was I blocked? Well, because they blocked me. Is that avoidable? Sometimes the answer is no.
Right.
Other times is oh, you lost focus. You were thinking about something else and the play went off and now you have to react rather than respond in the way you've been trained to.
Yeah.
So a lack of training, a lack of coaching is in there, a lack of attention in the moment. So I can look back and go, okay, I need to make sure that I'm focused before that ball snaps, regardless of what happened.
Yeah.
And there's bunches of ways to do this, but I think within church, it's easier to, unfortunately easier to oversimplify things, and we can overcomplicate them too, believe me, but we can oversimplify to where everything are these micro sins. And I'm like, but now you're not moving on and being the thing God has actually made you. You're his prized possession. And you're worried about that you said a word wrong. I think you're more than that. If you think God is telling you to adjust that, then do that. You can do that. It may take time, but to misunderstand that and go, oh, I'm no good. Honestly, you thinking that, I would call, in a sense, you have to do more explanation, but you're cursing yourself on this more than the word you just said. Step up. You know, be a person of God who goes, I don't want to do that anymore because it's not who I believe I am.
That's right. That's right. Even to continue that sports analogy, what the kids are taught these days is next play. That's what they're supposed to say to themselves. Next play, next play. And there's sometimes I kick back on that argument because there's a value to reflect and assess and make some adjustments. But there is also the element for the basketball analogy, what you watch is somebody messes up, turns the ball over, 9 times out of 10, they go and foul. Because you're just trying to make up for what you just did, and you're like, just stop it. Just, I mess up, get back on defense and do what you need to do. But we get so hyper, like you said, in our head over these things, and But
imagine a game.
Good.
Imagine a game where that's what the coach is teaching.
Right.
Pay attention to every mistake you made.
Yes.
And now you're frantic. No one knows how to, and you do
in the
it terribly.
Church, that argument is a lot of pay attention to every single step you made in that play instead of next play. Move on. Repent. Move forward.
Self-awareness. What created it? What set it up? What are the things that created James' illustration here? Is gives birth to. Well, what union did you engage in to give birth to this? And the birth isn't the issue. The engagement is. The interaction that, at least metaphorically, relationship you had that created the baby. That's the thing that you can pay attention to. And the sin isn't necessarily, it's in the choice that was made. It's in the exchange of a momentary thing for the eternal thing.
Yes. Okay, so then I want to go back again and see this. So it says, whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God our Father, who created all the lights in the heavens. He could have named anything, but he says, who created all the lights in the heavens. And I love how you stopped. You pointed it out to us. First of all, light is the first thing that he created. And you just have to pause and think about, what is the benefit of light? It's the first thing I do when I step into a room is turn on the light. Why? Because it brings clarity, helps me know where to step, and where to go, helps me feel safe because I can see the space that I'm in. I mean, there's so many benefits of light that the absence of light brings is confusion, trepidation, fear, same thing, pause where I'm not exactly sure how I want to step now and what I want to do here because I can't see where I'm going. Yeah. And just how I just think there's so much deeper to who created all the lights in the heavens. There's such depth to him choosing that I would really, I've just been dwelling on since you said it, of thinking about, and how light, but there is no darkness. Right. In him. It's the absence of light that creates darkness. Yes. Darkness isn't darkness. It's the absence of light.
It's not. Darkness doesn't exist. Metaphorically, we can say it exists. Darkness within people and things like that. But when we're talking about, I'm not a physicist by any stretch, but it's interesting to me, the whole thing. And in that, light is the thing that does exist.
And he says, God does not change. He does not cast shadows. Right. And just again, thinking of a shadow is just the absence of where the light can actually be.
Right. My cup is, our
casting
cups are a shadow. If there was light directly over or another light coming here, there wouldn't be a shadow because the light is covering these up.
Yep. So thinking about the first thing that God made was light, and then he transitions into, James does, well, actually, I was thinking about this I'm looking at my notes. The first thing God made was light, and he did it through speaking his words. Yeah. He spoke everything into existence, including us, James says right here. And if I believe that this God created the whole entire world into existence just by his words, then why do I suddenly doubt that his perfect word didn't speak me into existence?
Yeah. I would actually by James.
How would you question? Yeah.
I would add to it that I think there's an element of care. There's always, through all of creation, Genesis, there's, in my mind, and it might just be my point of view on God, there's a care. There's certainly a meaning to it, whether we know what it is or not. But he's doing something, and it has to have some purpose. But when he reaches the creation of mankind, and he says, let us make in our own. So there's the words. But then we see in chapter 2, where out of the dirt with his own hands, there's an additional, I just see it as intimate. I don't mean that creepy. I mean it just one-on-one. It's holding your newborn intimate is kind of what I mean. Yep. And he's forming it, not just speaking, but it has spoken. That's there, and then breathed life into them, into the first. And this idea, there's so many metaphors, but the idea of where he breathed life into, there's mentioned throughout the Old Testament of nostrils, and the idea is that he breathe into our nostril, which fills our lungs. This is a technical thing, but you also, I'm jumping way ahead, Jesus said, or it says about Jesus that he said, receive the Holy Spirit, and then he breathed on them. To me, these things there's a connection about life, where that life is sourced, where it's coming from, and life comes from him. The formation is close and intimate. The intent is there, let us, and the words are there. The action is intimate, and then the breath is not just life like everything else, but life from God.
Him. Directly.
Why not? And then Old Testament, why not spill the blood? Because life is in the blood. We go, there's oxygen in the blood. I'm going way deep, but the potential for these, I also don't want to say this is the only way to read Scripture. I'm simply saying I love these ideas that I go, man, what if these are, it's just cool to think about. And it's okay for something to be cool to think about and it not define every single thing in your life. But anyway, to know that what is flowing through my veins is the very air that God has blown in. And So from his word, we have been created. We have been given life. We have been birthed. And I think for James, certainly we were created. For James is speaking, I think about this new creation, this under in Christ kind of thing, where we who were not family are family. We who were not a part of, even though he's writing to Jewish people, I think that new creation thing is going on. So anyway.
And he then, that's where he transitions into, like, he created the lights, he creates us by his word. I love that. I always say the word romantic. I'm kind of a romantic.
Yeah.
And so when I read, even when you said, I don't remember what word you used, but in my head I was thinking intention behind each day.
Yeah.
Don't get caught in that. But the process of creation and how he built up to his ultimate prized possession.
Yeah.
And I almost look at it as, well, again, our relationship with God is also metaphorically a marriage, which the Bible talks about. And just thinking of, a presentation to the bride or whatever, or, whatever. So he's made this big, beautiful space for them, and they're going to have relationship now and tend this garden and be together and whatever, and recognizes that Adam needs Eve and whatever. So I can very much romanticize that whole thing because I think it's so beautiful. So I see that there too. And then just remembering, so he doesn't change. So that same God who was doing that way back then, thousands of years ago, is the same God who's doing that now.
Absolutely.
And breathed life into us, and that he knows me. And I find myself thinking, I only can come up with a couple verses. I'm sure there's other ones, but even just like Luke 12, that he knows the hairs on my head, or Psalm 56, it talks about he collects the tears that I cry in a jar. Like, he knows us. And Josh and I were talking this morning about so many times we as Christians can tend to, even I know people who even use the language, throw up prayers. We throw them up there and we hope that he might be listening. And we don't really, like, maybe he's so busy, we just hope, well, maybe he had a chance to pay attention and notice my prayer. No, this is the God who made us, breathe life into us as his prized possession, who knows the hairs on my head, the days I'm going to live, the tears I've cried, the sorrows I've carried, that it's that God that we get to have relationship with.
Yeah, and for James, I'm not saying this is the only way to think about it. For James, it's then a wisdom conversation with God. It's I don't understand. Please help me understand. And that's why all of a sudden he starts talking about wisdom in one of the first few verses, to me anyway. So if I'm uncertain, unclear, I think James would encourage our prayer to be something close to, please help me understand. Please help me know the next steps. Where should I go? Remind me whose I am. Not when there's maybe a lack of sense of security or something like that. But it's, if anyone lacks wisdom, if we don't understand, God's wants to tell you. But you got to come sincere, but not just sincere. You can't have really any shadow coming in as if, well, today this is my concern, but tomorrow it's this concern. And I also don't want to demean the sort of relational prayer, like the day-to-day thing. God, I'm getting ready to go to the dentist. I'm not. I had a dentist appointment last week, but let's imagine going to the dentist. I'm really uncomfortable here and stuff. I'm not downing that. Please do that. He is
a relational God.
Absolutely.
If he knows my tears, he knows that I have fears.
Look at David's
dentist.
stuff. Absolutely.
Right.
We're talking about when it becomes why. I think this is too much. For example, there can be other options here, but James is talking to people who are going through it. And in that he says, no, here's how, if you don't understand, go to him. Don't misunderstand. He's not creating this for you, not, making up some stupid test just to see, just to make you fail. While there may be tests, they're not pointless dumb tests, where he's not this terrible teacher that shows up and gives you a quiz the first day of class just to make you feel stupid. That's not the point. At worst, it would be, well, here's a test so that you can understand where you're actually at if you'll pay attention. So, but he also says those non-gift ones are not from him. So anyway.
I had something. I lost it.
It's all right.
You mentioned a question. You were talking about we became his prized possession on Sunday, and you asked, I think you just said the question in kind of a little rant of something. You said like, why did he birth us? I wrote it down. Why did he birth us? And I've been thinking about the question, and I wonder how you would answer it. Why did God birth Greg?
Well, I think I did answer it.
Okay. Maybe I was too busy thinking about the question.
No, I think it's so that we can be like him.
Make it individual. Why did he birth Greg?
Because there's good to be done. There's good to there's people that need. There's a life to be lived. There's community to participate in. To go back to Genesis, to oversee the garden, to do whatever it takes. Let's get rid of the weeds. Let's create the potential for more life. In that, fruitful and multiply, to me, doesn't mean just have more kids. It's let this thing flourish, let life flourish.
Isn't there also in Genesis 1 or 2 something about and God, something like an Adam walked with him, or and God walked with him in the cool of the day, or there's something like that. Like again, that's my romanticized picture of just like,
it does say it.
Why did he birth us? Because he gave us choice so that I could choose if I wanted to walk with him by the cool of the day. And just by merely being human, I chose not to. And he is in this grand plan of allowing all of us to join him in that because he breathed his life into us. And again, I want him to be able to walk with every single one of his creations. So I'm going to do my part to help other people know him. And that I want just your average person to know that they're not average. They're his prized possession with the breath of life breathed into them. And so let's marry those two realities and become who we're made to become. It all leads us back to, how do I identify? It's where it's such a great message from this sermon is, how do I identify? And when life hits, and it's okay to ask why. It's okay to doubt, wonder, wrestle it out a little bit. But ultimately, I have to come back to, who am I? How do I identify? Who am I because of who he is? And when I recognize who he is, it will help to shift my human inclination to either turn against him, or think he's tricking, or think he's out to get me and out against me. I have to recognize him, which then in essence reminds me who I am.
Absolutely.
That then gives me hope.
Yeah, and I think that order is particularly important, that it's God, then us. Many of the things I've heard, people who, how do I characterize it? People who are struggling with the idea of God, but come from a place where maybe at one point they weren't struggling with the idea of God.
Okay.
That they began at some point, whether they've been taught this way, which I think is true, or whatever, but they begin to define God through self-reference. So God has these attributes. I'm oversimplifying here, but maybe God has these attributes. Here's how I feel about those. Therefore, this God can't exist. And often in that situation, my response would be, I don't believe in that God either. You're referencing you to figure out what you think God might be. And at some point in Scripture, if we're going to reference Scripture in that conversation, he says, you thought I was entirely like you, implying you were entirely wrong. And he says, I'm not a man that I should lie. which is what a condemnation
Yeah.
of humans.
Yeah. So true.
And just a profound one too. And so our reference is him. A Father's Day message I did once was clarifying the idea of father, and using my experience with different fathers. And fundamentally, I said that your father was good insofar as he represents the true God, and not good insofar as he didn't. That God's the reference. You don't have to like that word. Let's come up with a different, use God or whatever. But the definition of father then, ideally, doesn't come from only your actual father or me as a father. Its value, well seen, and using the Bible to examine it, would come from him. Okay, now I have a standard, and let's build from there.
It's like that question, I think we just asked it a couple weeks ago, I think in a message, was, what standard are you comparing yourself to when you're trying
Very
to
much.
figure out where you're at or whatever? Well, if I'm comparing myself, I don't know, to a 5-year-old, then I'm killing it. I'm doing
Absolutely.
great.
I'm so good at math.
I'm so smart. But if I'm comparing myself to the what is it? The precedent of what smart is for that
Right,
example.
an MIT student.
Right. It's like I'm nothing. I'm worthless, and I have a long ways to go maybe.
Yeah.
But what do you, if we are going to kind of our what will I say, what will I think, what will I do kind of a deal. You ended with Isaiah 40 in the Message version. Okay, let's pause right there. How do you, be nice, how do you reference or how do you speak to some people are not comfortable with the Message translation? Well, because it's also not a translation. It is would we call it a paraphrase?
I'd call it a paraphrase, but are you, you said pause. Are you pausing the...
No, I'm pausing my thought. Sorry.
Making short. No, you're great. So I would definitely call it a paraphrase, but it's a paraphrase phrase from the original languages.
Okay.
Eugene Peterson is a well-known scholar.
Okay.
So his intent was to make the ideas that are in the original language come out in a way that I think, especially with the Psalms, I think he started with those.
Okay.
Because there's a poetic beauty in the Psalms that a straight translation often can't quite get across.
Yep, I get it.
And so that was his intent. So I would, as with every translation, if this actually matters, for the majority of people, this isn't an issue. But if you're trying to study, using this as, I like calling the Message version commentary.
Yes, me too.
It's just free yourself up. You don't build your whole theology off of only one translation. All of them can bring, most of them are well done and thought through. You can have your particular favorite because it just works for you, and that's fine. But if you're trying to figure out an idea and how the idea works, I would encourage glancing at multiple translations. For this particular sermon, I probably looked at 7.
That's
because I wanted I wanted to know how it felt, because the words, some words just don't directly translate. And so I want these different feels. And then in addition to a few commentaries looking up and how they interpret the passage in addition to the words and stuff. And I'm not a Greek, I don't know Greek at all, which is what this was originally written in. And so I have to rely on those, and maybe in the future I'll know some Greek, but even then it'll still be me referencing people who are experts at these languages.
Exactly. So you read Isaiah 40 in the Message translation, or in the Message version, which I loved, and I didn't copy it down here today. It was too much, but in a response where we always try to say, well, now what, after we've kind of unpacked this, I would encourage people to go back and read Isaiah 40 and read it in a couple different translations. I think, what PJ would say is, foundationally, when people ask what translation is the best one, he's like, the one you're reading.
Yeah,
the one you will read.
Will read.
Will read.
Yep.
You know, like, let's just start there.
Yeah.
And then, when you're studying, especially if you're going to teach or anything like that, not even if you're going to teach, just to make it applicable, if you're going to read the message, read a couple other translations too, where you see it maybe a little less poetic in its wording.
I believe Bib reads the Bible through every year. And she reads a different translation every year. Yeah, so.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing I would say. Now what? Go back and read Isaiah 40, because there was just some powerful language in there about who he is. Yeah,
some of which it would be hard to say James wasn't referencing. The light stuff that he's talking about. He created them all.
Yeah.
So that's why a number of commentators, including N.T. Wright, said, nah, Isaiah 40.
Okay.
And that's what brought me there.
Okay, I was wondering what brought you there. Yeah.
I know I've read this, but I've read the whole thing. It doesn't mean I memorized the whole thing and that all of it hit, through that entire thing. So coming back to this, I'm like, am I going to read this whole chunk? I'm trying to find where to cut it. And I'm like, no, it all fits. I have to read.
And I don't think anybody was spacing out when you read. I mean, it was engaging, and you were just listening to like, oh, dang, that was another good one. Oh, mic drop. Oh, whatever. So it was very engaging.
Aren't you listening? Haven't you been paying attention? Yes. Haven't you learned these stories since you were a child?
Yes, right. And sometimes even, on our Wednesday night group, some of the ladies that lead the tables, they'll come back and tell me about how passionate they get around the table talking about the Bible.
Yeah.
And they're just looking at blank stares. And it's that little tiny glimpse of what you guys feel when you're preaching on a Sunday, because you're like preaching, and if you look up from your notes or whatever, there's just blank stares, and you're like, do you not get excited about that? Like, look at what he's saying, and this God in Isaiah 40, you are his prized possession. He spoke all the light into existence. He spoke you into existence. And like Pastor Greg just pointed out, took the intimate addition to form you with his hands and breathe his life into you.
Yeah.
That's worth getting excited about.
Yeah.
And so then what I have to do with that is, right now, I'm not in a bad situation, or I'm not in something hard. So it's easy for me to go, yes, I believe it. What am I going to do? What do I need to be telling myself, thinking about, so that when those situations come where my identity takes a little bit of a kick, or I feel the need to defend myself because I'm misunderstood, or I feel like I've gotten myself into quite a mess and I don't know what in the world God could possibly think about me because I'm in this disaster, I need to go back to this and speak that truth over me, whether
Which
it's
I think
in James
points to James.
Yep.
Some of James' point, as far as giving meaning to what you're currently going through.
Yeah.
He's not mindlessly saying everything you should feel is just happiness all the time, regardless. Right. Oh, they just stabbed me with a sword. Yay! Right. But he's not silly, it's not dumb. But he's saying, what's the attitude that is going to get you through here, and what's the attitude by which going forward you're actually going to grow from? And it's a point of view on these things that, these are developing me. And if I die from them, I'm with God. That's dark. But not for James.
Right.
For James, that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Is to be with him, not to physically die. But it adds an element of perspective on, so, and I want to, Paul, the idea somewhere in Scripture, I want to say it's Paul, but it might not be.
I probably know.
It's good. And it's.
Why are you laughing?
It's no. I'm saying I'm surprised that I don't mean that at all. Now I've lost most of it, but the heart of it. But the idea that, why are you confused that you're going through hard things? You were actually designed to be able to do, as if this is unusual. Look around. Everybody's going through stuff. That doesn't mean you should enjoy it.
Right.
It just means don't act like, where's God? Why is this so terrible? At a core level, we all have certain reactions at certain times. There's days that you break. There's days that you almost break. I don't want to say every time you're struggling that you're the worst and even by any stretch. I'm saying it a core thing where you go, I'm done. God hates me. The Job's wife response, curse God and die.
Yeah.
That's where when we break, that we have Job times where I wish I'd never been born. I don't want to go through this. More kind of closely. I'm tired. I'm weary. I want this to end. This is human. I'm not going to make a positive spin on that.
Right.
I'm going to say that is part of existence for many people. The role of community is to come around, and the word picture is all the fields are around are having harvest. Your field is barren. You shouldn't starve. All the fields who are plenty support you because maybe next year their field is barren.
Yep.
But it's also because I think fundamentally I go as an ethicist more. I go because it's good. That's why we do it. Even if it never goes barren for you, it is good to care for those for whom it is. How do I respond when it's barren? What if it's never been fruitful? And there can be practical responses and stuff. For James at this level, few verses into a letter, he's saying, trust God. Don't give up. He is the author of life. Look for the things that are bright. Look for the things that are light-filled. Find these blessings. Don't give in to the temptation to drop your faithfulness. Stay connected to him. He didn't make a mistake in making you. You are his prize. You are also among those who are his prize. So to me, then, it answers an individual, but it answers an individual within community, and it answers that community within God's intention and purpose and meaning. So
he's only a couple paragraphs in from the very beginning of the letter, which is count it all joy when you face trials and tribulations or whatever, for the testing of your faith produces perseverance or whatever.
And that's what I'm talking about.
It's like he's helping you now. He said that shocking statement where you're like, yeah, of course, James, sure. And then, no, keep reading, and I'm going to help you understand more understanding of why certain things happen, and then, but don't forget who he is and who you are because of it. And he's just building on.
Absolutely.
So circle back to verse 1 and go, oh, now I understand a little bit more how he can tell me to count it all joy, because I'm not just looking at the circumstance anymore. I'm looking at who he is. And his whole, what you started in Genesis with his whole intention of what's happening. He's not chaos. He knows exactly what's happening. He's in charge of it all.
And you know what's crazy? We are doing really good Bible, I think. We're doing Torah. And Torah means instruction. We're the lessons from even the first 5. We're engaging in wisdom conversation here. How life is meant to work, how we can work that out, and then we move from here into my situation, your situation. And sometimes I'm like, but we only get this by experiencing things that might give some challenge. And you only get stronger by putting weight on the bar. And so it's I've had the incredible, I don't use these words much, blessing and honor to have interns and who are many of which are in ministry right now. And the reason I'm humbled by that is the percentage is really high of those who have stayed in ministry and went into ministry. And so I'm like, the only thing I can think of is that this is some of what we've tried to teach as a core thing also with our boys. But no, we were built for hard things. We were built to be able to handle things. And you're going into ministry. I don't want you go to the altar as a teenager and it's amazing. I want that to keep happening. You went as a young adult. I want that to keep happening. I want you to engage it. But I'm going to be honest with you to say something's going to punch you in the mouth.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely coming. I'm not cursing you. I'm saying this is the course of life. When that happens, are you called? And I would more generally, but just really pushing the issue that don't go into ministry thinking that the cool feelings you have in a moment are the things that are going to get you through. They aren't. They are either you are supposed to do this or you're not. If you can go do anything else, go do that. Why should I follow Jesus? Look, if you think you can go do anything else and it be true, you're going to struggle because you're going to think that thing is better than your current thing. I'm not going to tell you that you should go in the same way, go do something else. I'm just saying that there's a grittiness to this that we don't often present. It doesn't bring in big offerings, I guess. I don't know. But I think it's fundamentally true. You think you can find some meaning in something else, you're probably going to struggle. You're going to struggle at minimum with your thoughts of your theology, which is your thoughts about God, because you're going to think that he has to accomplish these things for you. And again, you're self-referencing how he should act. So anyway.
I was caught back on, you've had several interns, and I was thinking, well, I want an intern. And then you proceeded with the dialogue afterwards. I'm like, great, nobody's going to want to be an intern.
No, and good.
Right.
From my point of view, I generally don't want it to be easy. You can't. I don't want to sound heartless, but at the same time, there's part of me that is no. It means something to be us. You have to be in. You can't be part in. I would hope that if I was leading a football team, I'd be like, no, it's hard. You know, maybe the school has regulations that say I have to keep everybody. I don't know, but this isn't how our military special forces are handled. They're like, no, you have to, it means something to wear this, to have this pin or this hat. And it might mean nothing to everybody else, but it means something to me because I did the things that required to do that. And the people who have different ones, they did things, and I'm able to go, oh, I could never do what they do. I couldn't earn that, in the right words, earn. I can't, but I don't want to I want to present ministry as obedience. And if you are capable of obeying God and doing another thing, that might be your thing. But do it well. But if you know that this is what God wants, you're going to have, it's really, really cool sometimes. There's no question. But you're going to experience, should I even be doing this? You're going to experience people giving you more problems than they're worth. And you're going to have to come back, just like every other real heart profession. I think of doctors and stuff at certain points. My wife is a social worker. She has to go, but I think this is who I am, not just what I do, but who I am. I can't get away from who I am.
Which that's where I was going to swing to, of like, well, to say ministry is hard and being in ministry, I don't want to minimize that.
No.
But at the same time, I'm also thinking about what, I'm going to process out loud, what it maybe should mean as a Christ follower. Because I think of the guys in the Bible, the early church, and the way that they had to live, and yet we still want to live and equate ourselves to them. I guess. I don't know. So it's even coming down to, I don't know what God is calling you to, and whether it's, Angie as a social worker, whether it's me here, whether it's so-and-so there, whatever, it's the call that God has put. Are you going to live it and do it as a Christ follower? Because there's lots of things we do day in and day out that we're just, there's no foundation of this is part of the mission or the call.
Right.
So I don't know.
And we're not talking about something small, getting your nails done, getting my car washed and stuff. Look, if you feel conviction about that, then don't do it.
Right.
It has nothing to do with anybody else, but just don't do it. We're talking about fundamentally, why do you have a sense of being made? And this is some of the churches and Pastor Mickey's for purpose stuff. What is your what can you glean out as your purpose here? And excuse me, something in my throat. But it's in knowing some of those things. Here's an example. A friend of mine was moving out to Portland, and she wasn't moving because she had friends there. She developed friends, and not because she had a church. She just wanted to live in the Pacific Northwest. It was call it a bucket list thing for a 20-something-year-old. And it was just graduate school. Anyway, the conversation was, if you're going to do it, now is the easiest time to do it. You don't have attachments. You have friends, and we care, and I don't want you to go. That said, if I'm advising you, not as but as just an advisor, if you truly want to do this, then this is the time to go. You could solve all your problems, but I really want you to think about your why. Because, especially in the beginning, something just right in my throat, sorry.
Do you know water?
Especially in the beginning, you're going to feel lonely. You're going to not have enough money. It's going to feel like everything is wrong and that you may have made a wrong decision.
Yep.
So your why needs to overcome that. And because I'm telling you this, you can prep for that. I'm not telling you it has to go bad. It may go perfect. I'm just saying at some point you're going to go, why am I here? And this is similar to ministry. At some point you're going to go, is this worth it? And it should bring into question why you originally got into it. Ideally, and I know, again, I'm an idealist, and I want that I personally want that pushed against. I want you. I want ministers, if I'm trying to help coach them, to deal with that. Because of recognizing, well, I want to feel good, and I think this is, a way I can feel good. Or the last time I sang, I felt really good. Last time I preached, they all told me I did a great job. Those all really do feel good, but
they don't last.
They don't. Even if you're consistently good, you'll find them meaningless.
100%.
If you're paying attention.
Yep.
Which apparently not everyone pays attention to those things. But so why? For me, it has become very simple. I'm not bragging. I don't want to come it off that way. This is who I am. I'm in the root of the word pastoral, shepherding, caring. While that's my title, I'm not the best pastoral. I know people who are pastoral. Like the way I kind of think of that, my dad, my Mike Korsh is pastoral, cares about individuals and wants to make sure they're cared for and things. I am a teacher. I deeply care about people, but I've had to learn that through difficulty. I had to because it's easier to deal with data. It's easier to deal with learning and things that I'm natural in. So to combine those, to care enough about the word and recognizing that word is necessarily will take root and grow when people get it. Now I've combined it. And so in that sense, I'm pastoral. But if I was told, well, my why is to be a pastor at a church, it's honestly not. My why is to teach. My why is to, more specifically, I believe in the giving of hope. I believe it belongs to everybody. And if I can do that, if I can remove terror, simply by saying, have you thought about this? Then now I found my why. I will pay with me to do that because it is given to me. Whatever it takes, I want to do that. So anyway, that's a lot of words. We're past time, but that is the why. When we're talking about ministry, I do kind of hardline it, but I think that type of wisdom, which is where I first started this, goes into our Christian life and can. It is what I might think of as more advanced, at least in the way we think of wisdom, but it's still fundamental. We've weirdly moved away from fundamentals, and we call it, well, prayer, read, get it. I do agree those are maybe baseline fundamentals, but what do we take away from it is how to function in life. What is the Bible indicating how we function, and function in community, function primarily in relationship to God, and then as a result, how do I function with others? Yep. These are the things we've unfortunately interpreted. How does this affect me? That seems, Bible-wise, seems to be third. How do I relate to God? How do I relate to others based on this relationship to God? How do I relate? And there's an I to it, but how does all this then affect me? So, yeah.
I just love how we can sit here with 3 verses, and we've now hit all over the Bible, a whole bunch of different characters in the Bible, and a whole bunch of life about just being human, all just from these 3 verses, and where those rabbit trails can take us. So that is what I love. So thank you again for being here today.
Fun. Thank you.
And thank you, listeners. I hope you learned something today, and you're excited to just keep digging in. Stop.
Worship podcast.
Go read Isaiah 40. Okay.
That's it. Do it.
We'll chat again next time.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining us today. It's a big deal to us that you intentionally bring us into your busy lives each week. Our prayer is that you not only listen to a message week after week, but that you actually learn what it means to live it out day by day, moment by moment. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform so others can find us, and tell your friends and family to check us out too. I mean it when I say being with you is one of my most favorite days of the week. Now let's get out there and give away what we're learning about Jesus.